And welcome to this brand new edition of the Earl Hall Show. We've got a great guest for you on today. Her name is Laura Browne. She's a leadership and management expert, former senior HR director at a global tech company, and the founder of Career Coffee Break. She's a speaker, trainer, coach who helps leaders succeed and shows professionals how to get promoted and earn more through better negotiation. She's also the author of 12 books. Oh my gosh, 12 books, and has been featured in Forbes, Cosmopolitan, and USA Today. And we're going to be talking about one of those books on today. Ms. Browne, thank you so much for being a guest on the Earl Hall Show today. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Earl. I am so delighted to be here today. Thank you.
It is definitely my honor. Laura, this topic of interviewing is one of those topics, I mean, in my almost 56 years on the planet, I wish I would have known a lot of these things beforehand, because quite honestly, Laura, an interview is almost like, to me, a minefield of like, well, what do I actually really say here? What do they want to hear? How it's like, why don't they just ask me what they really want to know? Type of thing, instead of these mind games. So I have more than a few questions centered around that. But Laura, this book, like, what was the inception of this, and how did you even come about deciding that, you know what, people need to know about what's going on here?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said that. And trust me, early in my career, I made a whole bunch of interview mistakes. I mean, I had terrible ones. But what happened was, over the years, I've been in human resources for many, many years. I've been on both sides of the table. I've interviewed other people. I've trained leaders how to interview. And I've seen just really awful interviews as well as really good interviews. And so what happened was, a couple of years ago, long-term friend of mine, Barbara, and I started talking about this because she's been a career coach for years. She coached people on interviews, and we started talking about bad interviews. And I said, Barbara, I think there's a book here. And she said, no, 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 I am not interested in writing a book. And you know what? I kept bugging her because I teach people that persistence is really important. And literally, I think I bugged her for a year and kept saying, people really, really need this. And finally, she said, okay, let's write it. And honestly, we had a great time. It took us 2.5 years to finish this book, but it was really, really fun. We had a great time doing it. And based on what's going on in the world today, I am super excited that we started writing it because people really, really need this information right now.
Well, I think what you say is important here and is key because, I mean, let's just look at post-COVID, right? The changes that have come about from, working remotely, which I do, many of us do, work remotely. And even getting in on those interviews now, we're not doing in-person interviews like we did 10 years ago. This is all Zoom and, all this other kind of stuff. And, you've got a shirt on, but no pants. It's just like, there's all these different changes that have happened. And I think people need to really be aware that, especially now, for those in HR that are in the know about how to really interview, the thing is, we still don't know how to interview, during these things, because they're looking at more than just the words on the paper. They're listening to the tone and timbre of your voice. They're watching your facial expressions and where your eyes are looking and things of that nature. Those of them that really understand that. I don't think most of them do, but I think a lot of them do, when it comes to that. But you having the extensive career that you've had and doing this for as long as you have been doing it, what are some of the key things that you think people just don't know when it comes to interviewing?
Yeah. Well, so it's really funny. One of the things I keep hearing, especially with people that don't do good interviews, is I just need to be natural. I just need to be authentic. I need to be myself. And what that really means is I don't want to prepare because I don't think it's worth it to prepare. Okay, you're laughing because the fact is you need to prepare. That is the biggest problem I say. But there are ways to prepare and still be authentic because you can prepare and show up as your best self. And that's what we really talk about. And the other thing people make mistakes on is they don't really hear the real question. And that's why what we do in the book is we actually translate the real question. And we have a section, we talk about don't jump in and answer, because what happens sometimes is the beginning of the interview question is not the end of the interview question. So an interviewer might ask, tell me about a time when you did this, this, and this, and did this, this, and this. But if you're not fully prepared, you glom onto the first part of that answer and you're like, I know. And you're trying to think about it. Okay. You're thinking about it because you weren't really quite prepared. And so you answer that part of the question, but that's not really the full question. And so we really talk about prepare, have some, prepared answers to common questions. And we talk about that, but also really, really hear the question. And it's okay to pause. And it's even okay to ask, can you give me some more information? Or are you looking for this? Because you do want to give your best answer.
There are 2 questions that I've gone through in an interview, and they bug the crap out of me, quite honestly. Um, one of them is, "So tell us about yourself," right? That's one. And then the other one, and it seems this one gets asked all the time. "Tell us about a challenging time that you had in your career that you overcame." What? I mean, okay, do I embellish here? Do I make something up? It's like, what are they looking for when they ask you that particular question? The latter, not the former, but whatever.
Well, and so let's talk about those because you picked two of the most common questions. And again, I always say you got to be prepared for them. And that first one, literally, you're going to be asked that 99% of the time. So you got to be prepared. And here's the
Mhm.
key, though it doesn't mean tell me about when you were a Girl Scout, when you were, in third grade or whatever. You have literally 60 seconds. I mean, we talk about the fact this should be no more than 60 seconds to, if you can, make a connection. Hey, I'm, delighted to be here. Hey, I saw you also lived in New York. So if you can make a connection in a couple of seconds, but the real key is you want to pick two or three things to say that you're proud of, that tell a little bit about you, that connect to the job. So that's
Okay.
why I need to really understand the job. So you want to say two things about why this person should be interested in talking to you. Now, let's talk about the other question, and let me sort of back up. Interviewers are looking for three things. The first things interviewers are looking for is, can you do the job? I mean, that's pretty obvious. They look at the resume, they want some examples. Can you do the job? And that's what most people focus on. The second thing, though, is, will you be excited and motivated to do this job? I know you want a job, but do you want to do this job? So if I hire you, you're not going to, be bored and quit in 6 months. And then if you get past those first two, then you get to the third one, which is, will you fit in with our culture? Okay, so the person think about that. So go back to the problem question or weakness question. We say it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So the person is not looking for the worst weakness in your life. Okay. First of all, the person is looking to see, are you authentic? Or are you going to say, oh, I made a mistake last week when I ordered a sandwich. Are you going to do something stupid? Okay. No. So instead, you pick something that's not so bad but shows you understand that mistakes can be made and you learned from it. Okay, that's why preparation is so important. So we use for this one, we use the negative sandwich model. So first, you say, well, something I've been really proud of lately is this, this, and this. In the past, I was not. I had a problem doing this. However, I learned how to do this. So that's one way to do it. Another negative sandwich is to talk about a something that's a weakness in some cases. So it could be, normally I'm really good at doing X, Y, and Z. However, last year there was a situation where it caused a problem, and I learned now how to do this, this, and this, so that going forward, this is what I do instead. So again, they're looking, can you learn and can you show that when there are problems, because life has problems, jobs have problems, that you can deal with it and you can explain how you handle those problems so they know you can do it. So, does that help?
Yeah, most definitely. I will still struggle with it, if I ever do another job interview. But I think one of the main things that you're talking about, from my perspective, is the preparation of this. And I think this book is probably a really good preparation for folks, to really get an understanding of that. But what we're going to do, right, I'm going to take a short break. We're going to be right back and continue this intriguing conversation, and maybe it'll help me get a job. We'll be right back with more of the Earl Hall Show. Stay tuned. Job interviews, they're about what the interviewer really wants to hear. Have you ever left an interview thinking you nailed it, only to get a rejection? The truth is, interviewers speak a hidden language. If you don't understand it, you'll keep missing the mark. Interview Speak is your translation guide. Learn to break down tricky questions, anticipate what's coming, and craft authentic answers that make you stand out. Don't just answer questions, master Interview Speak and ace your next job interview. Get Interview Speak, what your interviewer really wants to know, by Barbara Limmer and Laura Browne. Available now on Amazon. All right, and we're back. We're here with our guest, Laura Browne. She is an amazing author of the book Interview Speak, what your interviewer really wants to know. I like how you got the on the book cover, the really is a different color than the rest of the letters, because it really is really. You know, Laura, I think for, time since the beginning, people have probably struggled with going on a job interview when that thing became a thing and really trying to get a job. And I'm sure that obviously there's books been written on it. There's podcasts about it. There's different shows that are about these types of things. In particular, what kind of really sets your book apart and makes it really unique? And why should people even really think about going on and getting this book to help them?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Well, I think first of all, one of the big things that makes it unique is our experience. So again, Barbara was a career coach for years and years and years, actually an interview coach. In addition, for a lot of years, she sat outside the HR office, and when people came out, she would say, "So, how did the interview go?" And they'd be like, "Oh, I nailed it. It was great." And then she'd go into the head of HR and say, "How was it?" And I'd say, "Oh, thumbs down." And so she started learning, wow, people think they do a good job because the answers sound good to them, but they didn't really do a good job. So again, our background, we bring so much information that it really makes a difference. The other thing we do is we don't give pat answers because one of the big mistakes people make is they have answers that they memorize. And so literally we have heard these answers. And I know one HR person who when a person said one of these answers, like, yeah, yeah, I read that interview book too. Now give me your real answer. So we really
Wow.
focus on, yeah, yeah, that, woo. The person was a little shaken by that one. But the point is that we don't want to give you the answer. We want you to design your answer with our questions and with our suggestions. And the other thing that we try to make it a little fun. We actually have cartoons in there. We have sentence diagrams that break down what does it really mean when they say, give me an example of a mistake you made. And so we sort of break that down. We also have examples where we have four different people that are in interviews and they're asked a question, they give an answer, we say what was good and what could have been better. And then we got some feedback early on from some early readers that said, we want bad examples. So we came up
Okay.
with Clueless Clark, and Clueless Clark makes dumb mistakes. But all these dumb mistakes are based on real mistakes we have seen. And so he always thinks he does a great job. And we take a look at the mistakes he makes, and then we break it out and we say, here's what he should have done better, and here's what would have made a better answer. So I think all these things, even though job hunting is not fun, we make it a little easier and kind of fun to take a look at it. That's why people should get the book.
Awesome. As you're talking, what I'm thinking about here is like going from point A to B to C all the way to Z in regards to these interview questions, because in the background, obviously there's always something else that's being looked for. And from the interviewer perspective. Um Most of the time, you've said and I've said before, the interviewee is kind of really clueless most of the time. When you say you break down like these answers, the good and the bad, what are some of the most common mistakes that that people are making? And my camera just shifted. Okay, cool.
Okay. The first common mistake I would say is not picking the right stories. So a lot of times they'll say, "Tell me about a time when." And again, this gets back to making sure you're prepared. Because if you're prepared, you can pick maybe 5 or 6 stories that are really good that you can use for a couple of things. That way you
Right.
won't be sort of surprised. The other thing is instead of pausing, people just sort of start rambling and just so it sounds better, and that's really, really terrible. You don't want to ever sort of do that, just keep rambling because the interviewer is going to wonder, okay, what's going on? And the other thing is, you need to make sure that you really understand the job. So we show how to break down a job description. How do you break it down so you're really answering the questions that relate to this job? And also, so that when they say, do you have any questions? You ask questions about the job. But let me get back to the mindset, and something we don't really cover that much in the book, but
Mm.
think about it. Interviewers are afraid. Okay, now we're interviewing, we're focused on our fear. I'm afraid I'm not going to get the job. I'm afraid I'm going to mess up. Well, think about the other side of the desk, which I've been on, the fear. Wow, if I move this person forward, is the manager going to be mad at me because this person is not a good fit? If I hire this person, am I going to look bad because they're going to quit after 6 months? So part of this is helping them to understand that they don't have to be afraid, that you really are the best person that can do it. You're delighted to be there and you're going to jump in day one and you're going to fit in with everybody else. So that's what you have to keep thinking about with these answers. How do I convince this person and get past their fear so I can move on to the next step or get the job?
When you look at it, when you're looking at those types of things, coming up with these answers sometimes is kind of difficult and it's kind of hard to kind of say, okay, this is me putting my best foot forward. Is there a time to brag?
Yes. That is my big so and it's funny, one of the things we talk about is the I versus we answers. So plenty of people think, "Oh, I shouldn't brag, so I should say we all the time. My team did this, my team did that."
Hmm.
And absolutely, you should be doing that. If you only say we all the time, interviewers are going to wonder, did she really do that? Or was it the team? And so they might ask some questions. The other side, though, is you don't always want to say I. If it's always I, and you
Hmm.
don't mention the team, then you're going to come across as somebody that maybe brags too much, maybe somebody that is not a good team member. But the point is, you need to make sure that I don't want to say it bragging, though sometimes people say it feel uncomfortable because of
Okay.
using that word. You need to put out there the great things that you have done. Because if you don't, then they won't know. And here's the other thing that sounds kind of funny. Make sure what's obvious to you is obvious to them. So if I tell them I did a great job on project XYZ, then they might go, oh, okay, and I might describe it a little bit. But if I then say, something that they don't know. This was a project that, saved the company $2 million and, made a big difference to the team and, put us in a
Yeah.
different trajectory, which, the company president was happy about.
Hmm.
Wow, that's a lot different. So make sure those details that you might think are obvious. Oh, they should obviously know that when I say SaaS, I mean this. It's not
Okay.
obvious to everybody. Make it obvious, make it clear so they can put the pieces together.
When you're an interviewee and you're going for a position, and you mentioned how the interviewer may be looking to see if you're a good culture fit. How does the interviewer or interviewee investigate the culture of the company that they're trying to go to work for? Because you know as well as I do, I mean, the culture in a company is the culture in a company. And if it's bad, it's bad. If it's good, it's good. And it's like turning the Titanic if you try and change it, and I've been involved in these things. So, what advice can you give the interviewee on checking out the culture that's already there before they go to the interview, decide to apply for the job, whatever, to really know if they are a good fit for them?
Great question. And so it's a bunch of things. Obviously, part of preparation is you want to find out about the company, you want to check out their website, but they all say the same thing.
Yeah.
We're a wonderful company, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Okay, then check out articles about them. But then I go further. So I love LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. And so I want to find out what people in the company are posting about. That helps me. So I want to see if there's anybody I'm connected to that has any connection to that company. I'm going to start checking out their posts and looking at any posts that the company
Hmm.
is posting. And then if there is any way to connect with somebody that I know, to connect me with somebody there and say, I just want to find out a little bit more about your company. Now, plenty of times people will say, no, I can't connect you, or I don't want to talk to you, or any of those things. But I have actually had people when I said, listen, I'm I'm interested in getting into the aerospace industry or this industry. Can you give me 15 minutes of your time and tell me, what you like or tell me a little bit about your company? Sometimes people will do it. And so there are a lot of different ways. Even if you don't, is there anybody you know that was at that company, that connect you to somebody else? So that gets back to the networking. And my
Mhm.
advice for networking is start networking now before you even want a job. And to do that, just go and check in on other people. Don't ask for anything. Just say, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in a couple of years. How you doing? I see you got a new job. What's going on?" So that when you want a job, it's a lot more comfortable to start reaching out to other people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Laura, I mean, what are some things you want to leave our listeners with right now also, and how can they stay in contact with you?
Thank you so well, LinkedIn is the way. So go ahead and find me on LinkedIn, connect with me. Please tell me that you saw me on this post and, say Earl sent me. I would love to hear that. Or they can find me at my website, Career Coffee Break. So I'm Laura at careercoffeebreak.com, and I would be happy to answer any questions. Um, so those are the best ways to reach me. And what I really want people to remember is prepare, prepare, prepare. Be authentic and be prepared because this stuff works. I remember I read something from one of the readers who said, I was clueless clerk until I read this. And he said, I got a job with using this information. So just by understanding the translation and spending some time, you're going to feel more comfortable and it's going to
Mhm.
go better. Will they all go better? Nope. But will it be more likely that it will be better and easier for you? Absolutely. So that's really what I want you to remember. And we have a discount code for people. So I know that you're going to talk a little bit about
Awesome.
that. And I just want to
Yes.
say thank you. Thank you, Earl, for having me on here to be able to
Ye
share my information.
Well, Ms. Brown, this has been valuable for me, and I'm sure it's been valuable for our listeners as well. And I definitely appreciate the coupon code, which we'll be attaching to this video. And any questions that anyone has for Laura, you can feel free to leave them at the bottom of this video, and she'll see it, and I'll let her know, hey, you've got a question, and we can go from there. But definitely connect with her on LinkedIn as well, and make sure the link is in the description for this video as well. Grab the book. Don't go on another interview until you're armed with this information, and make sure that you just really kill it. You crush it the next time that you have at bat. So, Laura, thank you so much for being here on the Earl Hall Show. This has been a joy for me, and I'm sure our listeners have really enjoyed this as well. So, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Earl. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.
You're more than welcome. And to you, the listening audience and viewers, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of The Earl Hall Show. Make sure you do check the links in the description because there's some valuable stuff there, as well as your coupon code to grab this amazing, amazing book, Interview Speak, What Your Interviewer Really Wants to Know. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Earl Hall Show. Take care. Job interviews, they're about what the interviewer really wants to hear. Have you ever left an interview thinking you nailed it, only to get a rejection? The truth is, interviewers speak a hidden language. If you don't understand it, you'll keep missing the mark. Interview Speak is your translation guide. Learn to break down tricky questions, anticipate what's coming, and craft authentic answers that make you stand out. Don't just answer questions, master Interview Speak and ace your next job interview. Get Interview Speak, What Your Interviewer Really Wants to Know by Barbara Limmer and Laura Browne. Available now on Amazon.